Hi everyone, this is Christina Barr and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. It's Christina Barr. Welcome to Black Tea News. Today we're going to be talking about Cori Bush and some CNN kind of propaganda, I guess, with how they are reporting, I guess, COVID numbers to incite some fear and also urge people to get the vaccine. And people are urging people to get it, and there's a plenty of data that people can make good decisions on whether they want to take it or not to take it. But I'll CNN did a story. I just gotta show it to you because it's so crazy. It's so funny. It's so funny how they presented the story. But really quickly, before we jump into things, I want to thank Brighter Michigan PAC for sponsoring today. I'm in the studio again. If you guys don't like what I'm saying, you can't complain to them. That's not how it works, but I'm just using the space, and I appreciate them, and I thank them for it. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I have written, check out different merchandise that I have. It is a fabulous way to support the show, to buy something, to buy lots of things if you would like. So go check out different products that we have and support the show. If you like what I'm doing here, you want to see things expand, you want to see things grow, make sure that you guys are doing your part. I thank everyone who has either done this or people who have directly donated. And if you would like to donate, you can just go to blacktnews.com/donate. There's a page that you can do it there. There's also ways that you can do it via PayPal, or you can do it via Cash App. So as you're sitting here listening, you can just decide to empty that pocket right now. But whatever you guys do, I love this shirt, by the way. It's in multiple colors. You can get whatever color you like that's available, but you are not that special. There's a lot of people who need to understand that today. But I do appreciate everyone who watches, shares, subscribes, likes, so on, who suggested someone else to watch. I really appreciate every single person who's on this journey and being part of this conversation. So I'm going to just jump into some things right now. First and I just saw this on on Twitter, this clip of Jen Psaki. Peter Ducey, who's like the bane of her existence, asked her a question about Ron DeSantis, who is the bane of the Biden administration, because they know he's like the top guy, right? He's a governor in a state that a lot of people want to flee to, a lot of people want to visit, vacation, where they have a lot of freedoms. He's like, no, this lockdown stuff is dumb. The continuation of a lot of this lockdown stuff is stupid. And he's like, we want to get back to life as normal as possible. And the Biden administration isn't following science. So they always want to dig on DeSantis. So there is like a back and forth. So DeSantis has apparently decided to start saying that, hey, we're going to withhold funds from schools that want to force kids to wear masks and don't want it, like, the parents to have a say or so on. So Peter Ducey asked Jen Psaki about it, and she had a very curious response.
Whether it's the child tax credit or benefits that are going to schools that are spread out over the course of a year, because we are still in a recovery.
Back to school question. Florida's Governor DeSantis says that he may start withholding funds from school districts that don't let parents opt out of policies that require masks in the classroom. Does the president think that parents should have that kind of power?
Well, I think I've spoken to this a few times, but I will say, as a parent myself of 2 young children, that I want public health officials to make decisions about how to keep my kids safe, not politicians. And not only is Governor DeSantis not abiding by public health decisions, he's fundraising off of this. So my view is that, and our view as an administration, is that parents in Florida, parents across the country should have the ability and the knowledge that their kids are going to school and they're in safe environments. That shouldn't be too much to ask.
He says that his concern is about harmful emotional, academic, and psychological effects of putting kindergartners in masks for hours at a time. Is there any concern from officials that you guys talked to in your early pre-decisional discussions about that?
No, there's not. And I will tell you from personal experience, my rising kindergartner told me 2 days ago she could wear a mask all day, and she's just happy to go to camp and go to school. And the objective from all of our public health officials has been clearly, and our Secretary of Education, kids need to be in school. We know there's a mental health impact of them not being in school, and we should take the mitigation measures needed in order for them to be in school and in the classroom, including masking and including allowing that to be part of a reality in these schools to keep the community.
Okay, so his question was, should parents be able to make that decision? And she said, well, I think I want health officials to make those decisions. Okay, and and she said, as a parent, I would want health officials to make that decision. So she herself, as a parent, has made that decision to put it in the hands of the health officials. Which health officials, there's no institution that is just so pure that they would just trust a science so much, and especially that involves any sort of bureaucracies and lobbying and money and politics. You know, people are swayed. People are swayed. So you can't just put your trust in anyone 100%. Like in the Bible, Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. People can get off track of where they should be philosophically or whatever. But if what they're doing kind of veers off the path of, I guess, what thinking should be, then it's like, we got to step back. So DeSantis is saying these guys aren't following science. And what makes you're going to have these kids who will pull down masks and whatever. They're not clean anyway. They're not going to keep social distancing. They're going to keep, living their lives. They attract germs, but they're not anyone who is very much in danger from COVID. It's very much something that affects older people. Young people have barely any risk at all. As a matter of fact, through this whole thing, I just read that the numbers in the whole time of deaths from like 18 and under is 418, I think was the number. From 18 and under from COVID. And some of that still might be with COVID, not actually like 100% COVID. So those are the numbers. We're talking about the U.S. So she believes, and I don't believe that she 100% believes that, but that's what she has to say. She's a press secretary. But still, as a parent, it is her decision to put everything in the hands of the health officials. DeSantis is saying, we want parents to be able to make those decisions about their kids. And I've talked about the past couple days, like, why I don't think you should put your total trust in the government as far as these decisions. I wrote an article on blacktnews.com about why I think vaccine mandates, not vaccines are evil, but mandates are extremely immoral from things that have happened within our government and even how their attitudes that they have today. And one attitude that they have today, someone asked Jen Psaki a question about about Joe Biden, whether he felt a child at 15 weeks was alive.
Does the president believe that a 15-week-old unborn baby is a human being?
Are you asking me if the president supports a woman's right to choose? He does. Go ahead.
She couldn't even say, yes, it's a human being. She just totally dodged that like she was Neo in the Matrix. That Neo is a lot more smooth. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have compared them. She just like, I know how to sledgehammer was like, I reject your question. and wouldn't even acknowledge that a 15 week, have you seen a baby at 15 weeks? Because it doesn't look like a clump of cells. It really doesn't. So, if she can't even acknowledge, and she keeps bringing up her kids like, well, as a mother of young children who's felt a child in the womb and has valued it, I can't tell you whether the president who has children of his own, grandchildren, doesn't even know how many or won't acknowledge the correct amount that he has because his son was whoring around, that they can't even acknowledge that it's a human being at 15 weeks. Not whether or not women should have practiced body autonomy and still be able to override, the life of that child for their own, benefits or whatever. And they can't acknowledge that because the ultimate answer to that, I believe, if they were honest, should be no. But they don't want to go down that road of logic. So they cannot be adults and own up to that conversation. They just have to be anti-science as far as like the pro-life stance and just ignore like, oh, do we believe the women have the right to choose? Yes. But moms don't have a right to choose whether their kids wear masks? Or how about that young lady that she doesn't have a right to choose whether she's going to wear a mask at school all day? Congratulations, you have a five-year-old who will wear a mask all day. That is not easy for a lot of parents. I did hear a story about someone, I went to an event about, I was asked to speak about critical race theory, and so someone was telling an experience about their I believe it was their grandson, and so he had to go get a COVID test to go back to school or something, and how they stuck it in the nose, and you know how they go really, really far back and deep, and so they found it so painful that they will just do anything so they won't have to take that test again. So DeSantis is like, I don't want these kids to be traumatized with the mask. Some people are already traumatized. And who knows how much damage we've done to kids. And I've had this conversation on the show before from them not being with their friends all this time. And for what? So the teachers unions could get a little more cash in their coffers. So when it comes to protecting your children, I wouldn't trust Jen Psaki, who can't even acknowledge that a baby in the womb at 15 weeks is just a human being. Is just a human being. If they're so into their political ideology that you can't even admit it's a human being, why would you trust them about your health, your benefits, and your kids? Because they're so far into their politics, they can't even be honest with you. And sometimes they probably feel like they have to lie or keep things from the American people usually those things are for national security reasons and so on. This was just, we got to protect that industry. And we can't acknowledge that it's a lot. A human, not just a lot, human. Someone said this to me on like TikTok in a comment or something, so I made a joke. And I showed a picture of my sister when she was pregnant. And I'm like, you know what? Her 3 kids, you got me. They weren't human. And I actually made pictures of sonograms. I'm like, the first one, he was a xenomorph. That's a thing from Aliens. I'm like, and Sophia, oh my gosh, she was a chair. I actually had a sonogram picture of like a chair in the womb. And the last one, I'm like, Serena, she was a baby shark. You know, you have to exit through the Stargate, the magical Stargate, before you are a human being. So I was mocking something just so absolutely silly. Bonkers. Okay. That's my rant for the Jen Psaki of the day. I want to talk about Cori Bush. Cori Bush is a new member of the squad. She's a crazy lady. I don't know how to be nice about it. She's just a crazy lady. Very, very radical. She was the one who well, obviously she's a congresswoman now, but if you might remember the McCloskeys, there was a group of like activists who came like on their property, and then you had the wife who was just kind of holding up her gun, and he was just like, and people started putting him on t-shirts, and they ended up getting arrested. So anyway, they ended up getting pardoned. And this isn't like the major like point of the story, but I just wanted to mention this so you guys have a reminder of who they are. So I'm going to play a little bit of the clip of the McCloskeys getting the pardon, their reaction to it, and their reaction to Cori Bush's reaction to them getting pardoned.
Do you remember the St. Louis couple who had that standoff with protesters amid BLM protests last summer? Well, they just received a pardon from Missouri Governor Mike Parson, but not everyone is celebrating the news.
There are pardons that we have been asking for, pardons that actually should happen in Missouri, and that was not one. I will not stand by and allow him or our governor to hurt the very people that are doing the work that they should be doing.
Here to react to his pardon, St. Louis attorney and Missouri Senate GOP candidate Mark McCloskey. Mark, thanks for being on the show. You just heard Cori Bush say, quote, she won't stand by while you get a pardon. Are you worried by that threat, or is last June's events over now?
Well, you know, she also said, I think my day will come. I think she made a direct threat. But, you know, if she thinks she can intimidate us, then she's mistaken. I mean, when she was standing outside my fence chanting into a megaphone, you can't stop the revolution. You can't stop the revolution. Well, then she has the gall to stand up in the halls of Congress and say anyone who supports insurrection shouldn't be allowed to walk the halls of Congress. Well, she's the only one I know in Congress that's actively and vocally in front of me advocated the violent overthrow of this country. So she's just a complete hypocrite. And, you know, she's not going to get us to back down.
Okay, so he's totally right that this woman is a hypocrite. That was a huge mess. So he's actually running for Senate, and he said he's been a lifelong Republican. That's not what I had heard when people started reporting on the McCloskeys, but it is what it is. He's running for Senate. I wonder how that race will go. But yeah, it's just a very crazy situation, you know, with them. They are holding their guns. Black Lives Matter was marching, and then they returned. And so, but where she was running in that district at that point in time, you know, she was basically going to sail through, and then she did sail through because it's like a heavy D area. So she went to Congress. She's the person who got on the floor and was talking about women, particularly black women, dying in labor, but she didn't call them women. She called them birthing people. Birthing people. So just a little bit of who she is. So she was questioned because she is huge on the defund the police movement. Okay? She's huge on the defund the police movement, and someone decided to ask an obvious question like, hey, if you're defund the police, which Biden is, it's funny because people like Biden are trying to run away from this, but hey, there's people like her who's still like, no, that's us. We're defund the movement. We're part of that. Decided to ask, but you have security, right? Paid security. So how can you be defund the police? What do you have to say to your critics?
Congressman, before we let you go, let me ask you about something else aside from the moratorium. You faced some criticism in recent weeks over your push to defund the police. Campaign records show that you spent roughly $70,000 on private security, and some critics say that move is hypocritical. What's your response to those critics?
They would rather I die? You would rather me die? Is that what you want to see? You want to see me die? You know, because that could be the alternative. So either I spent $70,000 on private security over the last few months, and I'm here standing now and able to speak, able to help save 11 million people from being evicted, or I could possibly have a death attempt on my life. And we're also talking about the same exact people who say horrible things about me, who lie to build up their base. And then because they lie about me, I receive death threats. Now, they don't address the fact that I receive death threats after they go on air and say horrible things about me. But then they want to say, oh, but she needs private security. I have private security because my body is worth being on this planet right now. I have private security because the white supremacist, racist narrative that they drive into this country, the fact that they don't care that this black woman that has put her life on the line, they can't match my energy, first of all. This black woman who puts her life on the line, they don't care that I could be taken out of here. They actually probably are okay with that. But this is the thing. I won't let them get that off. You can't get that off. I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life and I have too much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend 10 more dollars on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work.
I wish I had set it up so you guys could see my face as I was watching that clip. And even though I've watched it, I just like busted out laughing when she's like, "You would rather have me die?" Like, bro, it's not that serious. It's not that serious. No, they're just saying, why is it that you can defund our? Would you rather have me die? Is the question I could ask in return. Would you rather have black people die? Who calls the police? People who need the police. Like my sister was talking, one of my older sisters was talking to somebody about the police, and she's like, "Look, I want the police funded exactly whatever amount or it takes to make sure that when I call, they are there within like 5 minutes." She said that's exactly how much money I think the police need. If they don't have money and they're making their rounds and patrolling and whatever, and there's not going to be someone close to where I am and they can't get to me within like 5 minutes, she's like, they need more money, they need to hire more people, whatever. So if I can't get a police officer to me within 5 minutes, they need more money. So that is her philosophy. And it's a pretty good one to have. We are in danger when we don't have police that we can call. And they kept pushing. And when polling and data started to come out like, no, black people, we call the police. And then you have people like Tyler Perry and other people who start speaking out like, no, we need the police. We respect the police. We call the police. We don't want to be profiled and other stuff like that, but we need the police. And then at the same time, they were saying that, well, people need to take up arms to protect themselves. Like people need to do collective groups to do that. But what happens when you get someone like Zimmerman, or like you want to create a bunch of Zimmermans going around doing community stuff and making like dumb decisions and stuff? I don't think so. Do you want like the kid Kyle out in Wisconsin, when you have kids who have to pick up arms to protect people and store owners because there's psychos burning cities and riots and there's not enough police officers doing whatever? Now, people should take up arms and protect yourself because actually the Supreme Court ruled that they don't have a constitutional right that they have to protect you. Like, that is on you. That is what the Second Amendment is, so you can protect yourself from the government, really, but you do have a right to self-preservation. You can protect yourself, but we have guns for that reason. So please arm yourself. Police Chief Craig, he's running for governor. He said, arm yourself. And a lot of people did in this past year. So many first-time gun buyers. So many. During Obama's, when he's president, he kept talking about guns. People kept buying guns. But after like a lot of this Black Lives Matter stuff, people were looking at people rioting and all this kind of stuff. Like, I need to go out and get a gun. So many people going out and get guns so they can take care of themselves. So you should arm yourself. But this woman has private security that she's spending a lot of money on. And she's saying, my life is worth it. She's saying, my life is worth it. Therefore, I should have them. But we got to defund the police because apparently your life isn't worth it in those neighborhoods. Who do the police protect? And let's just keep going. Like, oh my gosh. Like, so people who don't want to fund ICE or something and like, oh, let's get rid of them. Like, are you saying, like, from her perspective of, well, let's get rid of your security. He's like, you want me to die? Okay, you guys want to get rid of ICE? Do you want sex trafficking to continue? Because they are involved in a lot of rounding up those people. They are involved in a lot of that. Oh my gosh. So this is a crazy person. This is a crazy position, but you know what? It's not like the first time we've heard something like this. It's really not. Go back to 2016 because Trump made the point, if Hillary's talking about gun control, taking away your guns, she was somewhere and they were like, what about Australia? They need a mandatory buyback. And she's like, oh, that sounds great. And it's like, it was mandatory. So obviously very bad on the Second Amendment. So Trump started to go around saying her bodyguards are armed. Tell her bodyguards to give up the guns. And do you remember the headlines? The headlines were like, Trump calls for violence against Hillary Clinton. Take a second and Google what I'm talking about. You will see headlines. I was trying to quite remember when I saw this video today. And I was like, that reminds me of Hillary Clinton and the Trump thing. And I Googled it, and they're still there. And, NBC, other New York Times, other people saying, like, Trump was calling for violence against Hillary Clinton. And people started making memes and making fun of the left and their failed logic on that. But he just pointed out the hypocrisy of you think people shouldn't have guns, but the people who protect you should have guns to protect you. It's just an extreme elitism that's so insane. But so many people have it just in general, especially like people out and, been on the Hill for too long. But she just got there. She just got there. So how is it possible that she can think that she's so much better than everyone else? Who does she think the police are for? But there's like this insane thinking that they're just trying to convince people that the police are just so bad for minorities and gays and whoever, and we need to get rid of them because that'll be protecting the blacks and the Hispanics, the Latino X's, whatever you say, whatever they call it or trying to call it. There was a show called New Amsterdam, and I watched a couple episodes of that, but it's a seriously leftist doctor show. It's a seriously leftist doctor show, and I was like, I've had too much of this. But after like the pandemic, we're doing the pandemic when they started to bring shows back. Isn't it funny that all these people were still working while they were saying you guys couldn't work and you guys are selfish and killing grandma, but these people kept on working, so much so that they could have plots of TV shows about the pandemic, about, Black Lives Matter or whatever. So there was an incident in the ER, so they decided to start having like armed, to have police in the emergency room. And so there was one person who worked there who was gay and was telling someone like, this is bad for us, and our patients aren't going to come in if there's police here. And so and she's just like, we need the police because someone tried to get hype with her, and they diffused the situation. So they just decided by the end of the episode they came to a different solution. They decided to pay bouncers to watch the ER. And then the head doctor, who's like ahead of everything, over the hospital, he came in, he's like, what's going on? And she's like, we defunded the police. But when he's like, we're scared of the police do this, the blah, 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 people aren't going to want to come. I want the police, shut up! I want them there if I need them. And look, I'm not going to say there haven't been incidents where they were just a little too on us and it was annoying. Because when we moved out to, when my family moved out to Clarkston in a gated community on a golf course, it was pretty nice. And we had a van, like a white van. And my dad is a light-skinned man. And sometimes, I don't know, they thought we were, I don't know, but when we would drive around, some people would call and the police came and like, hey, just checking up on things. And it's like, we live here. We live here. And so one day my dad was parked across the street from the house. He just wasn't in his driveway, but he was just across the street. And the police came up and he's just, knocked on the door to see what was going on. And my dad's just like, I'm in front of my house. I'm right in front of my house. And the police officer apologized. He said, I'm so sorry. These people are so paranoid. And then he started complaining about our neighbors because they're so paranoid. And so I don't know if they were like, oh, there's a black guy in a van. That car doesn't look like it belongs. And it was a nice van. It was just a big van. We have a big family. And that was able to get us all around from A to B. So we just had a big van. And a lot of us really liked that van. You know, it's no longer with us, but it was a decent van. And so he just said, you know, people, they're just so paranoid, they call. And so I don't know if they thought my dad was black. I don't know if they thought my dad was Arab. And then I don't know if because there were contractors who would actually go around to these houses when they were being developed, and they would go steal like furnaces and water tanks and all kinds of other stuff. So that could have been a thing too. It could have had nothing to do with race and just other suspicions of vans like that going around taking things, because that apparently was a thing too. So I don't know. I just know that my dad wasn't doing anything, but the police stopped us a few times, and so that was a little annoying. Also a little humorous because they were annoyed with it themselves. But citizens call and they go check out situations. I want to be able to call if there's a situation and the police show up. I've had to call the police a few times in my life. So people call the police. Black people will especially call, minorities call the police. We will call the police. So this whole narrative that they're pushing, Cori Bush's stuff is pushed, it's just crazy. But it's okay for her to have private security. And it's okay for Hillary Clinton to say, you know, we're going to have all these gun restrictions, or that the thing on the left. And if Trump says, oh, well, if you believe that, why don't you not have armed security? And then the left was like, oh my gosh, he wants Hillary Clinton to die. It was such a ridiculous time. And it didn't get any better. The media didn't get any better. They just got worse. Far more absurd. Because they were bitter. I mean, they were just like kind of fun, ridiculous, like during the election, but man, they were bitter. So bitter. Because Trump won. So another hypocrisy I wanted to mention, with sort of the same kind of logic, rules for you, but not necessarily for me, is Patrisse Cullors. So she has left Black Lives Matter, but she's one of the co-founders of it. And so she says that she is a trained Marxist. So she was in the news, and there's all this kind of controversy because she started buying up all this property and property in very, very white neighborhoods. So people are like, you're buying all these houses. Why ain't you with the black people, since you don't care for the white people too much, it would seem? Or you're all like Black Lives Matter, but you want to go hide in a white neighborhood. But also people on the left are like, I thought you were a Marxist, so why are you buying this huge property? So she defended herself, and she had a very curious defense.
There's also a critique, though, from the left that would say, if you are a trained Marxist, if we're talking about a certain kind of radical politic, that extravagant homes of any sort or multiple properties of any sort is itself contradictory to the ideology that you hold. And so it's not about having money per se, but that it's about, or about property per se, but it's about there being a potential contradiction between your expressed politics and your lived practice.
Sure. And I think that is a critique that is wanting. And I say that because the way that I live my life is in direct support to Black people, including my Black family members, first and foremost. And for so many Black folks who are able to invest in themselves and their community, they choose to invest in their family. And that's what I've chosen to do. I have a child, I have a brother that has severe mental illness that I take care of. I support my mother, and I support many other family members of mine. And so I see my money as not my own. I see it as my family's money as well.
So that is what she was saying was absolutely legitimate. But there's a lot of people who want to start a business to take care of their families, whether they are Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. So why is it that you, a trained Marxist, you are a trained Marxist, ma'am, those are your words, that we can just excuse that and just look the other way because she says, well, I can use my money that I earn from my family because my family is Black. So I'm helping black people. Why is your integrity that flimsy, ma'am? Everybody who makes money generally wants to make a new life for their family. Kids will grow up in poverty and want to go to the NFL or something so they can get all this money so they can buy their mama a house. How many times have you heard stuff like that? Like, I'm going to buy my mama a house. That's their dream. I'm going to buy my mama a house or buy my mama a new house. There's a lot of people who share that sentiment, but you don't believe in the beauty of capitalism that has provided so many opportunities for people to do exactly what you are doing. So people were questioning where she got the money. She said she didn't get paid by BLM. She said she never took a dime. There are kind of workaways around that. So I don't know if that's 100% true, but she is a professor. She says, and she's had other opportunities of people probably paying her. That's believable because people have poured so much money into Ibrahim Kendi and other kind of, pro-black folks. So that's not unbelievable that she made her living beyond the sort of money that BLM was raising. That's not crazy to believe. But if she did that and it was like, she made money. Let's say someone paid her a lot for a speech or something like that. Your voluntary labor exchange for money. It kind of seems like capitalism to me. And she could take that and she can go ahead and buy a house. But it's okay because she's supporting her family and her family happens to be black. Sounds sketchy to me. Sounds super sketchy. But these people, they can get away with whatever they want to get away with because it's for them. But if they're preaching to everyone else, you have to operate by different rules. Cori Bush can have armed security, but you can't have police protect you. Hillary Clinton can go after your guns, or Biden or whoever. But if you even suggest that they should have to live without armed security, then you want to murder them. You want to murder them. You want to murder Cori Bush. You want to murder all these people because you want them to have to play by the same rules they're claiming that you should play by. It's just insanity. It's just insanity and pure hypocrisy with those people on that, with people who make the lockdown requirements and they don't listen to that. Gavin Newsom going to his fancy party while restaurants supposed to be shut down, or the indoor eating and they weren't masking and social distancing and all that kind of other stuff, and he's being recalled because he deserves it. Gretchen Whitmer did multiple things, not following certain guidelines that she set for other people. You had the mayor in DC. You had Lori Lightfoot was like, well, I got a haircut because I need a haircut. I'm important, so I needed a haircut. But you're not important. You're not on TV all the time like I am. Why do you need a haircut? I need a haircut because I'm important, but you're not important. You people are supposed to represent your constituents. You're not more important. You're not more important than the people who elected you to do a job. And you should be expendable, as in you should be replaceable if you do a bad job. Now, some people have, it's very hard to beat an incumbent because they pretty much build a machine. But if you start getting the big head, you need to go. You need to go. You need to go. So Cori Bush is, like I said, a pretty insane lady. Last thing I want to talk about is CNN. Oh boy. CNN. CNN did this the other day. They had a show and they were talking about these unbelievable numbers. Unbelievable numbers. Talking about people who are vaccinated versus people who aren't vaccinated and your likeliness to get infected or die, I guess. So So here's a little bit of that report.
If you're fully vaccinated, you have an extraordinarily small chance of being hospitalized or dying from COVID. We're talking about more than 99.999% of fully vaccinated Americans surviving thanks to the vaccine. Let's bring in our numbers whiz, Harry Enton. Harry, first, could you translate those odds for us? It is more than 99.999%. If you're vaccinated, those are your chances of surviving any breakthrough infection.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had over 160 million Americans fully vaccinated. Of those, just north of 1,000 folks that died. It's so small. And you know, what I'm interested in is comparing the fully vaccinated to those who are unvaccinated. And what we know is at this particular point, if you are unvaccinated, your chance of dying is 25 times higher than if you're vaccinated. So if you have the opportunity right now to go get a vaccine and you haven't gotten one yet, the numbers paint a clear picture. You should do so.
Right. I mean, that data, those numbers, that's so concrete there.
Oh my gosh, those numbers. It's just so concrete right there. Oh my gosh. She sounds like a moron. She sounds like a moron. Oh my gosh. I have no idea who the anchor is, but that segment is so silly. It's so overhyped. And so here's the thing with the news. People can give you the news and everything about it will be true, but how they present it is very particular because they want a very particular reaction, outrage, and so on. So they are being technically true, I suppose, but they are emotionally being deceptive to you. So he's going on about how COVID, you know, if you're vaccinated, you're basically safe. Even though there's like people trying to make you more scared about if you're not vaccinated because they want people to be really scared of the Delta, excuses to do whatever they want, seize more power. But they said that there is a 99.999% chance that you will not die from this virus. That sounds really familiar, right? Because it's almost practically the number it was before, right? Of when there wasn't a vaccine in play, correct? So he decides to frame it as the people who are unvaccinated. If you are unvaccinated, you are 25% times more likely to die than someone who is vaccinated. And I suppose that could sound really, really scary to the anchor who's like, oh, those numbers are so concrete. Oh my gosh. But if you did, and this is according to the numbers that they just gave, I mean, so there's a 0.001% chance that you'll die. And if you times that by 25, your survival rate becomes 99.974%. So when you look at it that way, are you super concerned? Because it doesn't sound that concerning. I talked the other day about how I'm a little weirded out by the push that they have with them so hard. And I understand them wanting people to get it, especially people who are vulnerable. But most people have had an opportunity to be vaccinated, except for like kids who are young, 12 and under. But I've already said it was like 418 kids 18 and under have died like the whole entire time from COVID. And I'm not sure if that's just with COVID or just directly from COVID. It's still a very small number compared to like the size of the population in the US. So I made the case that it's weird to me that they're pushing it so hard with young people when COVID is not really a big risk to you if you are a healthy person. And I'm not making the case that you're likely to, that it can't kill you, that people haven't died. That's not what I'm saying. That's not the case I'm making at all. But it is weird to me that they're so gung-ho about introducing the vaccine into people when they have a good shot of just being fine without it. And the reason why I think it's so weird is because there are cases, like there was someone in Saginaw, a 13-year-old boy, who died after his second shot. And early on with the Johnson & Johnson, they decided to pause that vaccine because there were 6 cases of blood clots. And we actually have cases of kids dying after getting their second dose. And there's like patterns there. It's happened enough times that it's establishing patterns because people know that it's apparently affecting men more than women. But there have been women who have died. So I'm not making the chance that it is likely that you're going to die. That's not what I'm saying. If you take the vaccine, that's not what I'm saying at all. Chances are very, very slim. But the chances were slim you were going to die from COVID anyway. And just to the data that CNN put out, it's 99.974% chance that you're going to make it. So granted, that is 25 times, more than if you're not vaccinated. But those odds are still really good. And they're like, oh, thank you for coming in and explaining those numbers. CNN. Such a joke. And the anchor could have just explained all that herself. But, smoke and mirrors, you got experts who come on, analysts, whoever, to make your show a little more jazzy, I guess. To affirm to the people that there's an expert here talking about the issues. And you need to take their word for it. Because he's a math whiz, and he talked fast, and he seemed like he knew what he was talking about. And I guess he did, but the way that they framed it, was obviously to invoke a particular emotional response. Because when you crunch out that numbers, people can make risk assessments, and if you say 25 times more likely to die than a vaccinated person, that sounds a lot more compelling than 99.974 versus 99.999. So they knew how to phrase the story. So it's just funny. I said, I saw that on TikTok. I'm like, I gotta find this news report, and it's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. So after he left, there was another portion. So I'm kind of gonna go off to like a different thing, a little bit with the same clip, same broadcast, because she brought in someone else.
And joining me now to discuss is Dr. Anand Swaminathan, an emergency medicine physician in New Jersey. Dr. Swaminathan, great to see you. 99.999% of people who experience a breakthrough case do not die. How do you feel about those odds?
I feel pretty good about it as someone who is vaccinated and who lives in a state where vaccine rates are really high. That makes me feel good, not just for myself, but for my community, for my kids who are going to be going back to school, and for the patients that I take care of. And I think that's reflected in what I'm seeing at work. What we're seeing is that there are people who have COVID symptoms, but very few of them are very sick. And a lot of that is because of how well we've done with vaccination in our state and in the states around us. But, one of the things that comes up over and over again that we have to really be careful about is that, yes, the vaccine, highly protective for me, highly protective for those who are vaccinated, but it's not just a personal choice to get vaccinated or not because of how it affects everybody else around you. We're going to see spikes with kids. We're going to see going back to school that schools are going to get closed down again because there are going to be outbreaks. And this is the thing that maybe people aren't really as focused on as they should be. It's not just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting everyone around you, including those who can't be vaccinated or have immune compromise, and the vaccine doesn't work as well for them.
Right. And so many of the people who can't be vaccinated are 12 and under. These are our children, right? I mean, those are the kids and the people that are some of the most at risk because they can't be vaccinated.
So there we are again. She mentions the 12 and under. Because they can't be vaccinated, so we have to protect them. They're fine. They're mostly fine. There are people who actually can't take vaccines. And that's always an argument when people talk about vaccines in general. There's the people who cannot take them for whatever reasons. But I just thought it was interesting well, from the pandemic, you know, you want to protect yourself. You want to make sure that you're not going to die. But a lot of it's been guilt, like you're going to kill grandma, and shame, and just flat out aggression from folks. So a lot of people. So he's making the case like it's not just for you; it's for everyone around you. I wonder if this doctor here is pro-choice or pro-life. And we've heard a lot of comparisons about. Perhaps you haven't, but I've certainly had people making like logical comparisons to my body, my choice with the vaccines versus my body, my choice, how people feel on the abortion crowd and pro-life crowd. So it's always bizarre to me, the people who are on the pro-choice side who would try to make the comparison, because I'm like, you guys don't have good legs to stand on. But I feel like the pro-life people, when they bring it up, they have a far much better argument. But well, let's talk about it for a second. So if we believe that okay, so they're saying that you have to get the vaccine. Let's assume a pro-vaccine person is pro-abortion, and let's assume the person who's like, I don't know about that. Maybe I'll wait it out, or for whatever reason they don't want to be vaccinated, and they are a pro-life person. So the pro-choice person believes in my body, my choice, right? Just in general. Well, the pro-life person is saying, this is my body, my choice. But when you say my body, my choice, you don't mean that, because there's actually another body that's involved. There's a person involved. So it's not just about you when you make an abortion decision. And they're saying, well, it's not just a you decision because you can infect someone and someone could die. Well, it's likely that you'll infect someone and that person, it's likely they won't die. There's a 99.974% that they won't die normally. I mean, those odds change from age ranges, let's be fair, and whether you have underlying conditions. But people at this point have had the choice to be vaccinated or not. So that's mostly, unless you cannot get it yourself because of medical reasons, you've decided to whether you are going to take it or not take it, and that's on you. And then everyone can't be responsible for every stranger they don't know. We just don't participate in society that way. We don't live our lives that way. And so if you are a person who is seriously at risk, you need to take precautions to protect yourself, period. So, but the people who are pro-vaccine, pro-choice, if one life matters, if one death is too many, and so on, then why are you okay with abortion, which directly like the goal is to kill someone? The goal is to kill someone. It's not like it happens so rare throughout history. There are millions of gone. Poof, gone. So you believe in that people should get the vaccine to preserve life, but you believe that a mother should be able to abort her child because she should decide that she should be able to make the decision whether her life, and if the inconvenience of bearing that child for a few months, it would be worse than actually, bearing it. So it doesn't really fit very well. It's not a great argument. It's not a great argument with the my body, my choice vaccine, like comparisons and stuff. So if you're going to make the we need to preserve life and get the vaccine, I hope you're bringing that same kind of energy to whether babies should survive. And so another thing I was thinking about today with this argument was, eventually, if you're having a conversation with pro-life, eventually there will be someone who'll be like, well, we need to, instead of, just making it illegal, we need to do things like do sex education and provide condoms and all this kind of stuff, contraception and whatever. Which sex education, I talked about this. I had a friend who was like on a board in like Detroit trying to do sex education. And in Michigan, sex education is supposed to be about preventing pregnancy, but they were trying to fit gender ideology and all this kind of garbage in it. So I wouldn't trust the sex education thing. Just go teach your kids about that. Don't let strangers at school do that, because there is agenda there, and giving condoms and encouraging kids to have safe sex instead of just trying to kind of shun them from not doing it. I don't think having an age where people just do it nonchalantly has been good for our society. It is not like those things aren't readily available. There's a lot of people out there who, decide to do it. And then they'll make whatever decisions they want to make out of what's convenient. But the thing that's puzzling to me is when we get there and people start saying those things, they don't want to mention the thing that works 100% of the time, except, I guess, in the case of Mary, in the Bible. They don't want to mention abstinence. They don't want to mention encouraging abstinence, and maybe you might be shrieking because I said it like, oh my gosh. But that's the thing that will work 100% of the time. I mean, unless you like inject a sperm in you or something. But like, if you just go through life and you're just not having sex, you're pretty much not going to be pregnant, right? But then people say, well, that's not realistic. Okay. You say the thing that works is too unrealistic of a goal. We shouldn't try. We shouldn't try. You don't think it's worth trying the thing that works 100% of the time? Okay. Let's go with that, but let's compare that back to the vaccine thing, I guess. It's not realistic what people are trying to do with the vaccine stuff. Like you have a lot of elected bureaucrats and scientists who are connected with Biden, like Fauci and all these people. Like if the goal is to live a society where COVID is at like zero, we just have no cases at all, no deaths ever, which the deaths are very low. That's why they're only mentioning cases. Some places where they have like rolling day seven rolling day averages of zero, they're still asking people to like mask up. Fox News ran a headline that said, I think it was maybe Illinois, Chicago maybe had like four COVID deaths versus like 11 homicides or something like that. And the rest of the media was so like, oh my gosh, look how Fox News is covering the pandemic. Like accurately? Like homicide is a bigger problem in the city than COVID? So they've got it down, and now they keep pushing things because they have unrealistic, unreasonable expectations. It's going to be with us for a while, and we just have to live with that. But they also want to enforce unrealistic things, like Jen Psaki was like, my 5-year-old, she says she could wear a mask all day. Well, that's not realistic for every kid, for every family. It's not realistic for people for people who own property to not collect money from their renters. That's not realistic if you want landlords to stay in business. That's not realistic. It's not realistic for people to just keep pausing their lives while all these other elected officials who make the rules go out and live whatever life they want. AOC took a picture the other day, got caught, and she's like, for the picture she put on the mask, but when it was a few seconds later, she took it off. She's like, I'm not wearing this. Took it off. So we're not having realistic expectations about where to move forward. What's realistic is that we live in a country where a lot of people have free will, and we all have certain liberties that have been trampled over the past for more than a year. What's realistic is that people should be able to make their own decisions about how they live their lives. Parents should be able to make decisions for their kids. Jen Psaki saying, well, I want scientists to make those decisions. Well, scientists once decided that they needed to experiment on black people and see how syphilis was untreated. I'm pretty sure scientists decided that they needed to see how COVID was if they played around with it and it ended up escaping. There's scientists who believe that we need to mess with other viruses so they can, in the goal of pursuing, a cure. I guess it's noble-ish. It's also unethical because of the consequences that may occur, like a global-wide pandemic. Science has also decided to lie several times. Science also has been wrong about, I played a video a couple weeks ago of Leonard Nimoy talking about how there was going to be a global cooling crisis, a new ice age within a lifetime. Well, Leonard Nimoy is now gone, God rest his soul. And the ice age did not come. How many apologies do we get from the science community from being so wrong on that versus like stuff they'd say about global warming that didn't pan out? Al Gore said years ago, though he's not a scientist, but he's like really on this global warming thing, years ago, that if we didn't do something drastic, then we only had like 10 years. Rush Limbaugh made a countdown clock. That clock ran out, was it 2016, 2017, something like that? Poof, gone. Where's the apologies for being so wrong? None? So, we are not led by scientists, and we elect people to govern, but they're not supposed to rule our lives, and they need the consent. They're supposed to have the consent of the governed to function. It's very important to our constitutional republic. So people need to remember that. I'll close with this. Cori Bush, after her rant of, "You want me to die?" She said that she wants to defund the police because the police are doing things outside of their scope. And she's like, you wouldn't want me to be a doctor if I was your nurse. Well, you guys in Congress are doing a lot of things that you're not supposed to do. You really are going above and beyond what you're elected to do. And you sleeping outside the steps of the Capitol because you feel that landlords should not be collecting rent from people after people have had unemployment, people have had stimulus checks. People can go get a job if they want a job. They are open and available, and they are paying very good right now because people will not go back to work. So, take your own advice, sweetheart, and stay within your scope. Actually try to represent the people, because you trying to defund the police, that's based off your ideology. That's not based off of reality of what people want. And let's just get back to some common sense governing, because these people are psychotic. Thank you guys very much for watching the show today. Again, I want to encourage you to go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I have written. Please check out the store. I got this goat hoodie in different colors. It's really amazing. I'm not the victim you're looking for. Really enjoy that shirt. Got other stuff going on there that you guys can check out and get. I love this shirt. I'm going to order it for myself. You are not that special. A lot of people need to know that. Maybe we need to send one to Cori Bush. Maybe we need to send one to Cori Bush. You are not that special, ma'am, and you're certainly not more special than the people in the neighborhoods who call the police and depend on them while you are trying to defund them. These people are psychotic. But anyway, I thank you guys for watching. Please join me tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Let's TikTok About It, where I review TikTok videos. God bless you all, and I'll see you.